the Tafseer of surah naba. This surah is Meccan, and all the surahs from Mecca, they're all related to the creed and belief. They were the first surahs that were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all of them, they don't have so many rulings and telling us how to live our lives so much. They're more to help the believers to have the right belief and creed, and to strengthen their faith in Allah, His angels, the revealed books, the prophets that came before, and the Day of Judgment, as well as Qada wa Qadar. So we find this theme throughout all of the surahs from the Meccan period. And this surah An-Naba, is concerned a lot with the Day of Resurrection. And this is why it opens with the first ayah. It says, Amma yatasa'alun. This is like a question. It's surprising that they are debating about this, and the fact that this surah opens with a question, it's making the reader, the one who hears this or reads this, reflect and think. Because when you are faced with a question in the first instance, for example, if someone begins a lecture or a talk and they open with a question, they do this to open the minds of the people there, and normally the speaker is then going to give them the answer, and they are open because they've been opened with this question, that what is the answer to this question. So the minds are open and people are waiting to hear the answers of this. So this is a way of getting attention and for opening the minds and hearts of people to consider this question, and to also see how big and important this question is. And often when I read this ayah and reflect on it, it makes me think that the big difference between the things that we ask about and we think about, and what we should be thinking or asking about really. Because here is Amma yatasa'alun. What are they asking one another about? They are debating, as we find below, and naba al-azim, the great news. They are debating about the judgment day. If the judgment day is really going to happen or not. Is there really a judgment day? But this is considered the great news and a big thing. But what are the people nowadays asking about? Just about how much money do you have in the bank? Who's getting married? Who's marrying who? Why are they marrying this person? That's not right. That's not suitable for them. Why are you doing that at your age? It's not suitable. Why are you wearing those clothes? What are you going to do tomorrow? What shall I do tomorrow? Shall I travel or stay here? So when I read this ayah and I ponder it, I just see that many of the questions we ask ourselves, I'm not saying we can never ask ourselves these questions, but we're missing the important question about what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment. And this is the big question that we should be considering, and it is the main question, and the main thing that we should have before us, as Muslims. If we are Muslims, we should be thinking of this and considering that this is the main thing that we should be concerned about. Not what is someone wearing, why are they wearing that, why are they talking to this, why are they doing that. We're not supposed to be doing backbiting and so forth, but anyway, so this is the big news. And the word am in Arabic is from amma, means about what? What about? What are they arguing about? And this is to emphasize the obscure and to emphasize the importance and greatness of this question. And this debating was happening between the disbelievers of Mecca and also amongst because the believers and the disbelievers, obviously they had different answers to this question. الذي هم فيه مختلفون. So they were in this question is something that people are in disagreement about. So here it's referring to the believers and the polytheists, because obviously as believers we believe that there is the judgment day and we will be rewarded for all of our good deeds, and also punished if we might be punished if we've done bad deeds. And this is why it's such a big and important question. On the other hand, some people don't believe at all that there is any judgment day. And this is related to our belief in Aqidah and Iman, in our faith, because as Muslims we have to believe in this. And there are many, if someone is doubting in this, there are many arguments and evidences from the Quran that we can maybe talk about later on. And the thing is that we can't make it's not something that you can test scientifically in a laboratory. So for this reason as well, many people have doubts because they say there's no firm evidence or basis. But this is the thing about belief or creed, that if obviously Allah could give every evidence and could make everyone believe. He could, if he wanted, let people see what is there of the Day of Judgment, but many things have been veiled from us. We don't hear what happens to people in their graves, for example. We have something that prevents us from hearing what happens in the grave, or seeing things that, for example, we don't see the jinn. We're told that they are there, but we don't see them. We're told that animals, for example cats and dogs, can hear what happens to people in the grave if someone's being punished, but we can't, because if we did, it's said that we probably wouldn't bury people in the ground. We would be afraid. So God, Allah has not given us all this information. He has not given us the ability to see things. He's covered these things, but He's asked us to believe in them. And this is like a test for us, to test our faith. And we can know these things through the intellect and through rationalizing. We can look at this Quran and we can look at the world and we can study it. And many people from many religions, there's Christians in the past who came to believe in God through rationalizing. And there are many people in the world who come to believe in God just by rationalizing. They did not see God, and they don't have to see something physical, but they can understand that there must be a creator, because how could the world be there? And these books that have come as revelations, the Quran, people who study it, they can come to understand, is this a book that a human being could write, or is it a divine book? And we find many scientists have come to the conclusion. For example, Maurice Bucaille, if you want a name for one of these scientists, there's Maurice Bucaille, and I don't know if I said his name right, Maurice Bucaille. He's from France. And he's written books about this, and he was a scientist. And there are scientists who, they find evidences for the things that they've studied and learned in the Quran, and they've written books about it. So it's not something that you can test in the laboratory or come with a big evidence, but people who have some sort of knowledge, or they know things about the world, or they know, they can understand that this book is not something that a human being could write, for example. That means that if a human being did not write it and it's saying that it's from the Creator, that it is from the Creator. And we also have fitra. I mean, people don't put a lot of evidences into, intuition and feeling, but if you I mean, many scientists, once I saw a video, a recording on the television, and they were talking about heart transplants. And nowadays people often think that it's the brain that is the primary source of knowledge and information, and we take all our information through what we know through the brain, and we have to have evidences, and we have to have certain arguments before something can be considered as a fact or knowledge. But when people had done heart transplants, and people who studied the heart, they've started to come to the conclusion that it's actually our hearts that bring the information to us before our brain can register it. Our heart is the first place where we collect information, because our heart has a strong energy field, like electricity, or some, like this energy field anyway. And information, we collect it straight from our heart, but we don't know how to interpret this information. Our brain will interpret it afterwards, because our heart and our brain somehow, the information will go to our brain afterwards, and then it will interpret this information, and then we will start to understand it more. But the primary place of getting knowledge is our heart, and this is why often we feel things or we sense something, but we don't really know why, or we don't really understand it. And people call this the sixth sense. I mean, when we studied science, we were told we had 5 senses, but we hear many people talking about the sixth sense, and it's the sense that we feel something. And strangely enough, this sixth sense sometimes can be stronger than some of our other senses, because it's our sixth sense that sometimes tells us we're in danger, or we need to get out of a place, or we need to do something particular. Sometimes we have a sixth sense that someone's in danger and we need to help them. We did not see them, we did not hear them, they did not tell us. There's nothing to touch, nothing to hear. But we just have this feeling that we have to call them, we have to help them, we have to do something. And we have this feeling, and we don't know where it comes from. People say they can't really explain from where. So we can't deny just when we say we have a feeling, for example. When we feel we have a sense, or we feel an inclination for something, we can't just deny our feelings or other people's feelings. When they say they feel they have a connection with God, for example. I mean, how can you just deny somebody else had a connection with God? You say that their feeling is not correct, but how would you know? I mean, just if you say that they can't bring an evidence for their feeling, how can you also bring an evidence that it's wrong? You can't. But at the end of the day, as I was saying, these feelings that we have, especially when it's not just one person, because we can, of course, say that if there's one person feeling something and there's all the evidence against this, we can come to the conclusion that this person may be wrong about that, because they're just one person and they just had a feeling, but there's a lot of evidence that this thing is not correct. For example, they're feeling that aliens came and took over their country, and there's no evidence that there's any aliens. There's no evidence of a spaceship. Nobody's seen them. Nobody's heard them. Nobody else had this feeling. Nobody saw this. We can come to the conclusion that this is an absurd belief and there's no evidence. But for example, if we're seeing that there's many people, millions of people, and they're all not connected with each other, they're not friends, they're not relatives, and all around the world, people, they just say they have this feeling and this strong sense of feeling, and they feel they have a connection with the Creator, they feel there is a Creator, and not only they're feeling that, they're not just feeling that in their heart, it's fitting in with logic. For example, okay, I was born and I'm going to die. How did I come to this earth? Why am I here on this earth? How did I come here? How did I begin? How did humanity begin? And where am I going to go after I die? If someone has this feeling and they have the feeling that there's a Creator and that there's a day of judgment, for example, and then they have and these things, they answer these questions, these important questions, and there is some sort of logic to that, and it answers things rather than gives many questions, then it's looking more likely that it is an evidence. Because obviously, for example, somebody walking in the desert, they might see footprints of that somebody else had walked before them. And there might be a small doubt that maybe they didn't walk, maybe there wasn't someone walking before them, maybe these footprints somehow came from it. But usually it will be that way. For this reason, we can't just deny belief in Allah, belief in the Day of Judgment, because we didn't see it. It doesn't make sense. Basically that. So basically, Juz Amr talks about the paradise, the hellfire, the Day of Judgment, and the reward and the punishment. So, for these reasons, people might try to argue about some of the things that we're told we will have in the paradise. For example, we're told that there's Hur al-Ain, there's fair maidens, and there's rivers made of wine. And obviously some people will be confused, why is there wine in paradise when we're told not to drink wine? But this kind of wine is not intoxicating wine. It's not like the kind of alcohol it's not alcohol that people drink on this earth. I mean, of course Allah will not give us something that harms us on the Day of Judgment. We're told in a hadith of Ibn Abbas that the things that are described as being there on the Day of Judgment, their similarities are just in names. They're not the same as the worldly things. So belief in Allah comes about, is also related to talking about paradise and hellfire. And according to this book, if we're going to debate people on this issue of paradise and hellfire and the Day of Judgment, really there's no point to begin this debate with people who have no belief in Allah from the beginning, because if there's no common belief, how can we really argue or debate with people? I mean, the only way to really convince people or to argue about if there is a day of judgment or not is when they are beginning to believe that there is a creator or a God. When people are atheists and they don't believe anything like that, they will just believe that they're going to the earth because there's no creator for them in the beginning. So in the end, there's nothing as well. It doesn't make any sense to them. So the belief in Allah is something that we prove through the intellect, although it is from the unseen. This was, as I was talking about earlier, that people all around the world say they have a sense or belief, or we call it in Arabic a fitra. It's a natural disposition that people have this connection with the Creator. So this is why we find people, even very uneducated people, maybe they're living in tribes, and I'm not saying that they are less of human beings or anything. I don't want people to think I'm talking about people in Africa. They could be in any country. They could be white, black. They could be anywhere. But uneducated people living in tribes, they didn't have education, and obviously it doesn't mean that they're bad people, but they're not educated. But they may feel, and they may have a connection with the Creator. I read once in a book that there were people in a certain tribe, I think they were in Africa, and they believed in someone, they said, who doesn't go to the toilet. They said that there's a great creator and he doesn't go to the toilet. This was their basic understanding, that there's a big difference between the human and the creator, and the difference is that he doesn't go to the toilet. So you find even some very uneducated people have this belief, because it is a fitra, it's a natural disposition that you find even with people far apart from each other. But at the same time, educated people also come to this belief, and they come through science sometimes. Although people are trying to say that science and religion are totally opposed to each other, now we have scientists arguing for the what did they say? There's an intellectual belief in the Creator. They say that science is leading towards belief in the Creator, because as we study the world more and we learn more about the world, it's making it's showing the intricacies and the harmony, and it's showing that things couldn't have just come about just randomly like that. As people say in evolutionary theory, for example, things just happen randomly and they just came about and they just happened, and humanity just happened like that. And they don't really give an explanation about how things began. I mean, some people debate that there was a big bang, but then we have to ask where from this big bang. I mean, normally we hear big bang and we think that, was it a bomb? Was it someone banged the door? Somebody banged something. Normally there is someone who causes this. I've never heard that there was a bang that just happened. We just ask, who caused the bang? What bang is that? So there has to be something, if there was a bang, before the bang, to cause it. And since we have a beginning and end, it's kind of it doesn't make logical sense to most of us that there was nothing before this beginning and after this end. So anyway, this is why some of the scientists, for example Michael J. Bear and the Stephen mayors, they've written books, and there's other people who've written books, and they start to write against evolutionary theory, and they have this intellectual understanding of belief in God, and they're not related to any religion. So, in the past we have Bedouins that used, for example, camel droppings to point to the existence of a camel, and tracks to point to the existence of a person. So even these people, as we mentioned, the Bedouins and the people who live in places where they don't have access to normal education and they're not big scholars, they have their ways to understand the basic idea that, camel droppings mean that there was a camel there, and footprints mean that there was a person there. And the same way, there are many evidences on this earth that point to the existence of the Creator, and one of those main things is our existence. One of the big questions that we often ask ourselves, and for me, when I was a child, I asked this question. Because I was confused. When people are dying, where are they going? So I asked, where do people go when they die? I was really confused about this question, and I wanted to know. And I did not find the answer from atheists. It only was from in the beginning, from Christian people, and then obviously from when I became a Muslim. I had the answer to these things. So there are many evidences for that. And the Quran itself tells us that these are evidences for the creation of the heavens and the earth, and that there is a creator. So if we are faced with someone who is telling us that they don't believe and they can't believe and they don't see any evidence, the main evidences are from looking at the world and from science itself. For if you look at the creations of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the night and the day, are signs for those of understanding. Because how could the heavens, how could all the skies and this earth be in existence just by itself, just randomly? We have to reflect on this point. And the changing of the day and the night, can the day and the night just change by itself? For example, if we use a computer, or we use any sort of gadget or robot or something, and it's supposed to do something at certain times. For example, we put the alarm on our phone, it's supposed to go off at a certain time. We're supposed to the computer is supposed to download things or do a barnamage at a certain time. But does this computer or this alarm clock or any of these gadgets that we have, do any of them just do it randomly by themselves? And if they did, for example, if we have a computer or something that's doing something randomly, it's normally not doing it correctly. It's normally making lots of mistakes. For example, it will freeze, or it will just shut down, or it will do something that's very wrong. It's not going to do something at the right time by itself. We have to program the computer or the robot or whatever it is to do things at certain times, and to open or close at certain times. And they have only us or other outside influences. For example, if the battery goes, we don't have much control to make the computer do something or the phone do something. The battery has affected it, so it's not going to do anything. But when we charge it, we have control what we can do with it. The computer or the phone or whatever it is does not have the ability to do something by itself. And even if we see it doing something that we think is, we say by itself, it's normally not by itself. Maybe something else entered upon it. Sometimes, for example, in my tablet, maybe I dropped some water on it sometimes, so it starts doing something by itself because it's as if somebody touched it. Or from the electricity or from something, but it's not from itself. Inanimate objects can't do things by themselves. This is something scientific. So we're told that these are the signs for people who have intellect, because it does take thinking and time to understand these things. Some people don't give time to thinking about these things. They're too busy thinking about just their daily worldly life, and they don't give time to thinking about deep subjects. They call them deep subjects or philosophy. We don't have time, they say. But through these proofs and evidences, we can come to the conclusion that we have a creator. And this is the reason why we've had messengers come to call to this creator. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was called to people to confirm the existence of Allah ﷺ. By offering both these scientific signs from the Quran and intellectually to point out the signs of his existence. And then Allah, he's the one who tells us that there is paradise and hellfire. And that's the only way that people can really accept these details, because if they didn't believe in Allah, it's very hard for them to believe in that. And this surah is the first surah in Juz Amr, and it's interesting that it opens with this subject of the Day of Judgment, because all of the surahs in Juz Amr are going to talk about the Day of Judgment and the hereafter. So this is like an opening for this, and a very appropriate opening, that Amma yatasa'alun, that they are asking about, they are debating about this, and then the whole of this juice is going to debate this and give evidences for the Day of Judgment. And not only Juz Amma, but there's many evidences in the Quran we can talk about later on.